Greetings and salutations. I am Neverborn, The-Abyss-That-Slumbers, and you are listening to Eldritch Lessons. This evening's lessons will be the cause of racism. In order to understand racism, you have to understand how your mind stores memories. Leftists and SJWs have this tendency to go straight to Pavlov and behaviorism and stop right there. They consider everything you do to be a Pavlovian response, just like every other animal on the planet. So, if everything is a learned, triggered behavior, then everything is biased, and everything is sexist, and everything is racist, and everyone is a bigot. This is not the case. In order to determine what causes racism, we first need to understand how people take action. Ultimately, what you do is racist. A thought may have racist overtones, but it doesn't matter if said thought has no effect on the world at large. To take action, a number of factors need to be considered. There are instincts, implicit memories, explicit memories, your current conditions, and choice. These 5 factors come together to create action. If any action is to be viewed racist or not, it must be determined on its own merits. Just because someone may hate all black people, if said person helps a black person, is his action racist? Maybe, but normally, if your action does not factor in race, if you are affecting someone for any reason other than race, then your action cannot be racist. However, this is not the position of the social justice warriors. Social justice warriors don't see the human mind this way. They believe in only implicit memories and current conditions. In fact, they ignore 3 of the 5 factors that make up any action you can take. Because they believe we are all Pavlovian and that our actions are determined entirely by past experiences, then we must just be a series of if-then statements. Feed in the right input, and you will always get a predictable result. Therefore, if you have racist implicit memories, then your actions will always be racist. This is a fundamental belief of postmodernism, and needless to say, quite incorrect. First, we must prove the existence of these 5 factors, then we can demonstrate how racism occurs, and more importantly, why. As a baby, we have certain inborn instincts that kick in. As we develop, certain hormones and other metabolic changes occur, other instinctual behaviors manifest themselves. These are behaviors that are natural to every human being, with males and females having a select number of divergent instincts that are a result of estrogen and testosterone. We do share many instincts, but there are a few that are sex-specific. Now, for those who believe we have none, I would just point out to the fact that babies will grasp a finger reflexively. This has been recorded even in babies that are born prematurely. The list of instincts are actually quite small. There are many people who claim that women have a mothering instinct and men have an aggressive instinct. I'm afraid instinct is not nearly that cut and dry. Think of instinct as a push, a nudge. It isn't a raging river, but a gentle stream. Most of the time. You can go against the stream, but it is a bit of effort. Most instincts are very weak in humans. I believe this is by evolutionary design. Instincts have simply been weeded out except for the very basic ones because of the superior combination of implicit and explicit memory for problem solving. If you are wondering what the strongest instinct happens to be, that would be the will to survive. Moving on. Explicit memory is a singular experience remembered. For example, this moment you are experiencing right now could become an explicit memory. As time moves forward, you may or may not remember this sentence, but normally, explicit memories are from personal experience. Implicit memories are created. Speak the alphabet out loud. Did you sing the alphabet? Do you remember the 40th time you sang the alphabet? Most don't. This is because the alphabet isn't an explicit memory, but an implicit one. You have taken various explicit memories of singing the alphabet, compressed it down, edited out the unique parts of your explicit memories, and in the recurring pattern, you found a new implicit memory. The alphabet and the song are intertwined because both are common repeating patterns in most of your explicit memories of reciting the alphabet. Now, implicit memories, unlike explicit memories, are not remembered, but triggered. Once conditions, sensory input, or even recalling a particular explicit memory triggers an implicit memory, it begins to play itself out. Walking is an implicit memory. Catching something thrown at you is an implicit memory. Implicit memories are also associated with so-called muscle memory in this regards. They are triggered, and then the program runs its course. Implicit memories can be interrupted, of course, but when they start, we have very little control over them for the first moments of said triggered implicit memory. Now you may ask yourself why. The human mind is very slow in comparison to daily life. If you had to think about every step you took, walking would take forever. The time it takes to see an incoming rock thrown at your head and the time it takes to think about it, well, frankly, it hits you. If you didn't have an implicit memory of what happens when things are thrown at you, you'd take too long to react to any object that was thrown at your head. This is why people can claim to act without thinking. Because of implicit memories, we are always several seconds into our future. That's how they work. If you see something that triggers an implicit memory, and said implicit memory is anticipating something, it activates. Simply put, speed is an advantage. Being able to act faster than the other guy gives you an edge in evolution. So, for millions of years, the implicit memory, or Pavlovian response, has been the de facto form of memory in all creatures on planet Earth with a nervous system. Humanity changed that. This is why you flinch. If you could think fast enough, you'd know if somebody was going to hit you or was just pretending to hit you. If you knew he wasn't going to actually hit you, you wouldn't flinch. However, we can't think that fast, so we learn to just assume that if a hand is coming towards our face, flinch. But if we learn that someone is just messing with us, we can override the reflex to flinch and just sit there, unblinking, staring at the hand coming towards our face, trusting that they won't actually hit us. The urge may be strong, but you can override it. This conflict may make you uncomfortable, but the human mind is quite capable of standing there and letting things happen, even when your implicit memories are screaming at you to take action. Things get complicated when we start putting complex thoughts and emotions into implicit memories. We can already have complex series of actions triggered. Putting knee-jerk emotional reactions into triggering events is also possible. For example, the Christmas spirit is an implicit memory. You live your childhood seeing Christmas lights and Christmas trees and Christmas songs, and then there's the singular fun day where you get Christmas presents. You experience an implicit memory of a happy Christmas. As the implicit memories build up, they become an implicit memory of feeling good when you see things that trigger that Christmas spirit. Now, this isn't for everyone. If you should happen to have a series of unhappy Christmases, or you have a new explicit memory of Christmas that is angry or fearful, these new emotions are not the same as the old one. When your mind combines the new explicit memories of Christmas with the radically different emotions, you may find yourself losing that Christmas spirit. Your mind evaluated the old memories against the new ones, and that which was not reinforced by repetitive exposure gets eliminated. This is why we don't get emotional when we walk. Normally, we don't feel any one repeating emotion every time we take a stroll. This is what causes extinction of an aspect of an implicit memory. If you are afraid of heights, and later you are exposed to heights when you are not afraid, you can begin the process of overriding your fear of heights. You remember that heights aren't that bad, and over time, your implicit memories of how you react to heights fades. This leads us to racism. If you're exposed to a particular subset of outsider that is not part of your racial in-group, like black people, and that exposure is always negative, you will learn to feel negatively towards black people. This doesn't happen all the time, mind you. Not everyone learns racism. If you don't experience negative emotions of the same type every time you encounter black people, you won't feel negatively towards black people. Usually this requires that you are of a very limited exposure to a particular race. Too many diverse examples of one particular race disrupts the process, and you are unlikely to get a strong emotion in your implicit memory. Also, if your emotional reaction isn't consistently the same emotion, it won't form a strong implicit memory either. Now, it's important to note that not all explicit memories require a real-world event. You can imagine a scenario, and to your own mind, that imagined scenario is an explicit event. You might know that it's not real, but your mind does not understand that. You are basically having a memory of imagining something real happening. It's not as strong as a real event, but even a weak explicit memory can reinforce an implicit memory. When people tell us stories and we imagine those stories, they can become an explicit memory in their own right. This is how we can learn from others without actually doing what we're being taught. Unfortunately, this is also how you create implicit memories that trigger racist feelings. We hear all Asians are good at math, and all white people are racist, and all black men have big dicks. These stereotypes may have a basis in fact, but they don't apply universally. If you hear examples of other races but never encounter them yourself, you won't have any contradictory examples to prevent the creation of racist implicit memories. Fortunately, said racist implicit memories will normally be weak, unless reinforced with strong emotions. For example, if you are shamed by your peers for daring to disagree with them, you may feel the need to agree with their racist beliefs. Still, such implicit memories created by secondhand knowledge are usually overwhelmed, for the most part, by any real-life experience to said race. To continue, in the heat of the moment when you have only seconds to act, stereotypes are basically the human mind's best guess at what is the most likely outcome. However, after a few seconds, the conscious mind can take over. Because we always are thinking into the future, it is our nature to make snap judgments. If we are surprised or caught off guard, we might act racistly on impulse. We are merely expressing our learned behavior. When the moment passes, our conscious mind takes over. The person has the choice to continue his racist behavior or not. Not everyone has the self-awareness to do this. We may have learned bad habits and incorrect stereotypes, but once the moment of a triggered implicit memory has passed, even if it's still ongoing, we can seize control. That is our true selves. Your true self isn't the knee-jerk reaction. Everyone has learned behaviors that result in knee-jerk reactions. It is our ability to reason that is our true self. It is the human mind's need to explain and look for patterns that make us so smart, but it is also this need to find patterns that create illusions, specifically the illusion of the subconsciousness. The so-called subconscious mind that social justice warriors claim is our true self is merely an illusion caused by implicit memories being triggered. We assume that because we don't understand why we make certain choices or decisions, that there must be some hidden part of our psyche, the so-called id. This monster, it dwells deep within us, and we cannot control and never fully understand it. No. We assume because we are taking action that we must be thinking. Do you think when you breathe? Do you think when you make your heart pump? Do you think when you walk across the room about your inner ear balance and how each step lands on the ground? No. The human mind is more like a vast and complex machine with many, many automated functions. We sit at the control of said machine. We can program the machine. It does take time. We can create and destroy new implicit memories or automated functions. But once put in place, said implicit memories will react the way the implicit memory was created to react. We can override said implicit memory if we are aware of them, and take the time to understand what is the trigger and what is the result of said triggering. But just because we are a vast and complex machine does not mean there is an intelligence behind it. There is only the machine and us sitting at the controls. That we fear it is because we take no time to understand it. Social justice warriors would have you think the machine is everything, that you aren't at the controls, that you are not there. You are just a machine acting out its programming. You are programmed by everyone around you, and you have no input into the matter. I am here to tell you, the machine is nothing without you. You built it, you created it, and if you bought into the social justice warrior bullshit about you being a slave to your unconsciousness, you've never bothered to try and fight it. Or worse, never tried to help it. Our subconscious is not who we are, but merely a manifested behavior that is the result of the human need to anticipate the future. These subconscious manifestations, if we recognize them, actually have very little power over us. I would go so far as to say there is no actual, real subconsciousness as far as modern science defines it. It is a grand lie to convince people that they are helpless and a victim of their own minds. We cannot hope to control our unconsciousness, we are told. This is not true. You may have forgotten the origin or that you ever learned a certain implicit memory. But once it is triggered, you can find that implicit memory again, and then you can choose to keep it or get rid of it. It may take time to reprogram an implicit memory, but it can be done the very same way that you created them, with experience and a bit of imagination. Now, I've talked about how emotions are stored in implicit memories, but as you may notice, most of your implicit memories have no emotional subtext. Explicit memories are usually the source of how we feel about something. They are the single strongest emotions that we have, and they're all stored in our explicit memories. We are creatures of passion, and we use logic to justify those passions. Our passions usually come from our explicit memories, since the implicit ones normally wind up being disruptive emotions by the creation process. This is why explicit and implicit memories are stored differently. It is important to remember how explicit memories are made. They are not a snapshot. They are not a video. They are usually broken down into parts, then the parts stored all over your brain, and finally an index is created that allows you to put the parts back together if you should need to remember a specific event. The intensity of this is dependent on a number of factors. Ever notice how if you are under stress and have a flood of adrenaline, you tend to remember things moving slowly? This is not the case. You did not move faster. You just remember more things when you are stressed. As it becomes a stronger memory in such circumstances, the slow time effect is actually just lag from your mind trying to put everything back together. At least it's slow in comparison to the normal way that you slap memories together. For this reason, explicit memories can change over time, and if you relive a memory, you can change it. In fact, do it enough times, it will stop being an explicit memory and become an implicit one. If you choose to recall a memory enough times, you can change what you remember. You can choose to change certain details, like if you remember that whenever you encountered something, there was always a bug on the floor and that made you fill with fear. You can choose to try to recreate the memory with something else. Or you can choose not to feel fear at that time and try to feel positive or maybe angry instead. It doesn't matter what different emotion you have, as long as it's not the same emotion that you have learned in the implicit memory. This is why, when someone is interrogated about their memories, one must be careful, lest you contaminate their recollection of the events. It's important to note that this index file, so-called, is the weak spot of the memory process. It's why implicit memories often get forgotten and thus create the illusion of the subconsciousness. You do not need the explicit memory to understand the implicit one. The implicit memory is a standalone memory and needs/can be dealt with all by itself. While your mind may have forgotten the connection from one to the other with your so-called index file, if the index is not maintained, well, your implicit memory can be forgotten. This is why you can remember things if a memory is triggered, but you might not be able to recall an event from a long time ago willingly. Moving on. The next component would be your current situation. The now, the moment in which you are acting. This is when information comes in, is filtered by your instinct, implicit and explicit memories. Conflicting information is evaluated and weighed against other memories. Finally, you have to make a choice. And that choice being how you will act in the current situation. Remember, choice is what creates action, but implicit memories is what is reaction. Your action is either racist or it is not. You may hate blacks, but then you may choose to give this black guy the benefit of the doubt. And if you do so, then your action is not racist. Your thoughts might lead one to think that you are racist if someone could read them. But your actions are what matters, because we often have many conflicting memories and thoughts. They are evaluated, weighed against each other, and then the action is made. One need not fear a racist thought, only racist actions. It does not matter how you reach a given conclusion, as long as the conclusion is the right one, whatever right may be. I understand that is kind of subjective, but for the most part, people know. Yes, racist thoughts may lead to racist actions, but they have to deal with other thoughts that may be anti-racist. We can have multiple sources of information, ranging from explicit memories of this very video to where you learned how implicit memories work. Then, when an implicit memory is triggered, after you realize it is playing itself out, you can make a choice to actively stop it. Your knee-jerk reaction might be to punch a guy in the face, but if you remember you are on parole and do not want to go to jail, you certainly can stop the swing. Choice is the final conclusion. Choice is what we do. We examine our sources of data, then exercise free will and pick which courses of action to take. Sometimes the choice needs to be made so quickly our cognitive processes can't take control in time. It is regrettable. If you are just letting your implicit memories form on their own with no oversight, you may find it difficult to keep your implicit reactions to triggering events in check. In short, the human mind is messy. You can have racist thoughts, but that doesn't make for racist actions, and that doesn't make you a racist. Racism is a choice. The problem comes from the belief that we have no free will. Social justice warriors think basically everything is an implicit memory. They deny instincts, they deny explicit memory. Thus, they deny the existence of free will. Explicit memory has been proven to exist when people who suffer from memory loss try to learn new things. There was a man who could only remember things for 10 minutes at a time. As an experiment, they would sit him down every day, put a mirror and a star pattern on a piece of paper and give him a pen, and say he had to trace the star by only looking in the mirror. Even though every time he sat down he thought it was the first time he was tracing the star, over the weeks he learned how to trace the star very quickly. And he would just remark to himself, "My word, I seem to be a natural." That is not the case. He learned it. You can still form new implicit memories even if you cannot form any new explicit ones that exist for more than 10 minutes at a time. They are separate, distinct, and both equally real. In order to not have free will, you would have to prove that every action I take is perfectly predictable. Since the uncertainty principle in physics makes it clear we can never have perfect knowledge of the present as long as we remain inside the universe, we can never have perfect knowledge of the future. And yes, a straw man might say, but what if you could? Well, Mr. Straw Man, I'd say that you are changing the very underpinnings of reality itself, and it simply isn't a worthy question because it won't ever happen. In the end, our choices can be racist or not, but must be judged in and of their own context. A plus B may equal Z, but we cannot judge Z on what B is. Z is not B. B may be racist, but Z is its own variable and must be judged alone. Not everything is racist. Not everything is biased. We can be influenced, but in the end, the conclusion, our free will, is what matters. If you choose to take responsibility for your own mind, you will find it is a much easier thing to control. Our subconscious mind does not control our conscious mind, and in fact, I don't believe it really exists. We can choose what implicit memories we have and which ones we don't. It isn't easy to change implicit memories. There is a whole ton of work, but everyone can do it because you created them in the first place. Unfortunately, it is much easier to just believe in the existence of the unconscious mind and thus divorce yourself of culpability. However, if you do take the time to understand your own mind, see it for what it really is, remove the mysticism and shrouds of mystery, and then you will learn that you can reprogram yourself without going through the social justice warrior priesthood for absolution. Now note, I do want to point out that everything I am talking about is merely the knowledge stored in your mind. Nothing I talk about applies to organic damage. I speak of how to change your programming. If your mind itself is damaged, then this video may be of very limited use to you. A normal psychologist can help you if your brain itself is wired wrong. However, if you haven't taken the time to clean out the old implicit memories in your brain, well, let's say in your past lifetime, it may take a bit of work to get things just the way you want it. Everyone isn't inherently bigoted. We aren't all racist. There is a mechanism which leads towards it, but we are flawed. We make mistakes. In the end, most people do possess empathy for at least some of the people around them. As long as people have some empathy and can see others as human, then people will normally try to make the right choices based on what they believe. If you understand your own biases, you can ignore them and instead see people for how they really are. You can gain control of your mind, and then you are acting in a mindful manner. However, ignorance of how your mind works, that is the true cause of racism.
Greetings and salutations. I am Neverborn, The-Abyss-That-Slumbers, and you are listening to the Eldritch God.